By October, most American gardens have surrendered. The summer bloomers are finished. The leaves are dropping. The borders look tired, brown, and apologetic. Your neighbors are already covering their beds with burlap and writing the season off. And every single one of them is wrong. 11 perennials. 1 month. A yard so unexpectedly alive in October that drivers slow down to look at it while everyone else's garden has gone to sleep. These are not summer leftovers limping into fall. These are perennials that wait. Perennials that hold. Perennials engineered by evolution or by breeders to peak precisely when every other plant in the neighborhood has given up. The plant at number 11 is the single most important late-season nectar source for migrating monarch butterflies anywhere in North America. The plant at number 10 has been blamed for fall allergies for over a century, and millions of Americans are still scientifically wrong about it. And the plant at number 9 produces flowers in deep cobalt blue at a moment in the season when blue does not exist anywhere else in the yard. Stay with me and subscribe before we get to number 11. Plant 1. Sneezeweed. Helenium autumnale. The misleading name has kept this plant out of American gardens for 100 years, and the misleading name is completely wrong about what the plant actually does. Helenium does not cause sneezing. The pollen is heavy and insect-carried, just like goldenrod, and it cannot become airborne. The name comes from a historical use of dried flowers in snuff. The plant itself is one of the most spectacular late-season bloomers available to American gardeners. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, daisy-like flowers in fiery autumn colors, burnt orange, deep mahogany, golden yellow, rich copper, held on 3 to 4 foot stems above clean green foliage from late summer through October. The named varieties Mardi Gras for multicolor, Moorheim Beauty for deep red bronze, and Sahin's Early Flowerer for extended bloom are reliable performers across most of the country. The colors are exactly the colors of October itself: pumpkin orange, sunset bronze, harvest gold, which means a stand of helenium reads as the season made flesh. Pinch the stems back by 1/3 in early June to encourage branching and prevent the plant from flopping. That single cut creates a denser, more self-supporting plant with dramatically more flowers in October. Plant it in full sun in any reasonable soil. Bumblebees and migrating monarchs work the flowers constantly through the late season. Plant 2. Boltonia. Boltonia asteroides, the Native American perennial that explodes in late September and October in clouds of tiny white daisy-like flowers covering an entire 4 to 5 foot plant from top to bottom. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. The variety Snowbank is the standout, a self-supporting cultivar that holds its shape without staking and produces so many flowers that the foliage disappears completely beneath the bloom. From across a yard, a mature Boltonia in full October bloom looks like a massive snowdrift sitting in the border. The visual impact is genuinely unmatched at that time of year. Almost nothing else available to American gardeners produces that volume of pure white flower in October. Boltonia is a native of moist meadows and stream edges across the eastern and central United States, which means it tolerates wetter soil than most full-blooming perennials. If your yard has a low corner that holds moisture, Boltonia thrives there. The pollinator activity at peak bloom is extraordinary. Late-season bumblebees, solitary bees, and migrating skipper butterflies converge on the flowers when most other late-season nectar sources have begun to dwindle. Plant Boltonia at the back of a border where its height anchors the planting. Pair it with the deep purples and oranges of asters and helenium for a contrast that reads as designed even in casual cottage garden plantings. Plant 3. Toad lily, Tricertis hirta. The plant most American gardeners have never planted because they have never seen one in a neighbor's yard, and the moment you do see one in bloom, you understand why it deserves a place on this list. Hardy in zones 4 through 8. inch-wide upward facing flowers in October in cream and white, heavily speckled and spotted with deep purple, patterns so intricate they look hand-painted on a porcelain. Each flower is small, but produced in extraordinary numbers along arching stems above clean green foliage. The bloom is intentionally small-scale. You do not see toad lily from across the yard. You see it from 3 feet away when you stop and bend down. That is the design. Toad lily is the surprise of the late shade garden, the plant that rewards close attention from people who actually walk through the garden rather than just looking at it from the porch. The conditions toad lily demands are exactly the conditions most fall bloomers cannot tolerate: full shade, consistent moisture, rich woodland soil. That dark corner under the maple, where every sun-loving aster has died, is exactly where toad lily belongs. Plant it along a path where visitors will pass close enough to see the speckling. The flower pattern looks almost identical to certain orchid species, and the comparison is the comparison most visitors actually make. Plant 4. Hardy Garden Mum. The Mammoth series and the Igloo series specifically. Most American gardeners assume chrysanthemums are an annual, purchased every September at the grocery store, planted for 6 weeks of color and discarded by Halloween. That is the floral mum. The Hardy Garden Mum is a completely different plant. The Mammoth series, developed at the University of Minnesota for cold hardiness, is reliably perennial in zones 3 through 9 and produces extraordinary domes of color, 2 to 3 feet tall and sometimes 4 feet wide in October. Daisy red, coral daisy, yellow quill, the named varieties cover the full October color range and return reliably for 10 to 15 years from a single planting. The trick American gardeners almost universally miss is this: plant hardy mums in spring, not in fall. The grocery store mum sold in September has spent its entire life in a greenhouse and has no time to establish a root system before winter. Spring-planted mammoth mums root deeply through the summer and explode in October bloom in their first season. Pinch the stems back by half on the 4th of July. That single cut doubles the eventual flower count and creates a denser, more compact plant. Skip the pinch and the plant flops open and produces a fraction of its potential bloom. Hardy mums genuinely return for decades when planted correctly. 4 plants in. And here is what I want you to understand. The reason your yard goes quiet in October is not that the season is over. It is that you have been buying summer plants. Every plant on this list peaks specifically in late September through October, which means a planting designed around fall bloom delivers as much color in autumn as your June garden does in summer. If this kind of seasonal strategy gardening information is what you came here for, hit subscribe right now. The next video on this channel is built for exactly this audience. The gardeners who subscribe in the middle of a video are the ones who actually plant what they hear about. Plant 5. Switchgrass. Panicum fugatum. The native warm season grass that turns October yards into living architecture. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. 4 to 6 feet tall, with airy panicles of tiny rose-pink flowers in late summer that mature into golden seed heads through October, and copper-bronze foliage that holds color until hard frost. The variety Shenandoah turns deep burgundy red as the season progresses, ending the season in October with foliage the color of red wine. Heavy Metal is a steel blue selection that contrasts beautifully with the warm fall colors of asters and helenium. Northwind is the most upright, most self-supporting variety available. It stands like a column even after October storms that flatten lesser grasses. Switchgrass is the structural backbone of a strong fall garden. The vertical lines, the airy seed heads catching low autumn light, the rich foliage color, the rustling sound the dried stems make in November wind, these are the elements that make a yard read as designed in October rather than as forgotten. Sparrows, juncos, and goldfinches eat the seed through the entire winter. Native bees nest in the hollow stems through the cold months. Leave the grass standing through winter. Cut it to the ground in March before new growth begins. Plant 6. Ironweed. Vernonia noveboracensis and Vernonia lettermanni. The Native American perennial with deep purple magenta flowers in late September and October that create a color almost no other plant on this list produces. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. Vernonia noveboracensis grows 5 to 7 feet tall with dense clusters of small, intensely saturated purple flowers above sturdy green foliage. The compact cultivar iron butterfly is shorter at 3 feet, with finer thread-like foliage and the same brilliant purple bloom, a better choice for smaller borders. The color is one of the deepest, most saturated purples in American horticulture. Pair ironweed with the gold and orange of helenium and the white of boltonia, and the contrast looks like something a designer charged a fortune to plan. Migrating butterflies, monarchs, swallowtails, sulfurs converge on ironweed in late September with intensity that rivals the activity around butterfly bush, and ironweed is genuinely native to North America rather than imported. Planting ironweed in your yard is one of the most direct contributions a homeowner can make to fall butterfly migration. Plant it in full sun, in average to moist soil. It tolerates clay better than most perennials on this list. Cut the stems by 1/3 in early June for shorter, more compact growth, or leave them tall for the architectural drama at full height. Plant 7. Bugbane. Actea simplex, especially the variety Hillside Black Beauty. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. The plant that turns the deepest part of your shade garden into a fragrant October showpiece. Tall, slender wands of tiny white bottlebrush flowers rising 3 to 5 feet above deep purple-black ferny foliage from late September through mid-October. The fragrance carries 15 to 20 feet on still autumn air, sweet, slightly spicy, completely unexpected at that time of year. Almost no other shade perennial blooms in October in cold zones. Bugbane is the answer to the late-season shade gap that drives most American shade gardeners crazy. The combination of dark foliage and white bloom produces one of the most striking color contrasts available to American gardeners, black and white in the literal botanical sense, lit by the low slanting light of October afternoons. Plant Bugbane in part to full shade in moist-rich soil. It is slow to establish. The first 2 seasons after planting you will wonder if you wasted the money. The 3rd season, and every season after that, the plant will explode into the form the catalogue photograph promised. Patience is the requirement. Reward is permanent. Once established, Bugbane lives for decades with virtually no maintenance. Plant 8. Monkshood. Aconitum carmichaeli orensi, the plant that produces the deepest, richest, most saturated cobalt blue flowers available to American gardeners in October, a color that genuinely does not exist anywhere else in the yard at that moment in the season. Hardy in zones 3 through 7. 3 to 4 foot spires of helmet-shaped flowers in deep blue purple above clean dark green foliage from late September through October, sometimes into early November in mild zones. The flower shape is unique. Each individual bloom resembles a medieval monk's hood, which is the source of the common name. The structural elegance of the flower, combined with the saturation of the blue, makes monkshood one of the most photographable perennials in any October garden. Critical safety information. Every part of monkshood is highly toxic if ingested. The plant contains aconitine, a potent neurotoxin. Wear gloves when handling it, especially when dividing or transplanting. Do not plant it where children, pets, or curious visitors might be tempted to handle it. With that caveat respected, monkshood is one of the most rewarding late-season perennials available. Plant it in part shade in rich moist soil. It dislikes hot, dry conditions. The cooler the climate, the better it performs. 8 plants in. The most undervalued late-season perennials in American gardening are still ahead. If you have not subscribed yet, this is the moment. And drop one comment below right now. Tell me what your yard looks like in October, full of color, completely brown, somewhere in between, and where in the country you are gardening. Your answer shapes the regional full garden video that comes next. Plant 9. Schiza stylis. Esperantha coccinea. Sometimes called crimson flag lily or river lily, the plant most American gardeners have never heard of, and the one that produces vivid pink, coral, or true red star-shaped flowers on slender 18-inch stems through October and into November in mild zones. Hardy in zones 6 through 9. The variety major produces deep coral red flowers, Mrs. Hegarty produces soft pink, and Sunrise produces salmon. All three are reliable performers across the southern half of the country and into the mid-Atlantic. The bloom timing is what makes this plant genuinely extraordinary. Schiza stylis opens its first flowers in late September and continues producing new spikes through October into early November in zones 7 and warmer. While every other plant in the yard is finishing, Schiza stylis is just hitting peak. The grass-like foliage stays attractive all season. The plant is native to South African mountain streams, which means it requires consistent moisture and tolerates wet feet better than most perennials on this list. If your yard has a moist edge along a downspout or pond, Schiza stylis treats that exact spot like home. Plant it in full sun in zones 6 and 7, part shade in zones 8 and 9. Mulch heavily over the crown in zone 6 for reliable winter return. Plant 10. Goldenrod. Solidago rugosa fireworks. Millions of Americans have blamed this plant for their fall allergies every year for decades. They are wrong, completely scientifically wrong. And that one widespread mistake has kept one of the most beautiful, most ecologically valuable, most spectacular native plants in North America out of American home gardens for an entire generation. Goldenrod blooms at exactly the same time as ragweed. Ragweed is the actual allergy culprit. Ragweed produces lightweight wind-carried pollen that travels through the air, enters your sinuses, and triggers your immune system. Goldenrod produces heavy, sticky pollen that is carried exclusively by insects, bees, butterflies, beetles, from flower to flower. It cannot become airborne. It physically cannot enter your sinuses. Goldenrod has never caused a single allergy attack in the history of its existence. It simply bloomed nearby while ragweed did the damage and took the blame for it. That is one of the greatest cases of mistaken identity in American gardening history. Solidago rugosa fireworks is hardy in zones 4 through 9. The flower stems arch outward and downward in long, graceful sprays covered in tiny golden yellow flowers that radiate in every direction, exactly like fireworks frozen mid-explosion. It is one of the most dramatic and distinctive plant silhouettes available to American gardeners in the fall season. It blooms September and October in most zones, exactly when your garden needs bold gold color most. Goldenrod supports over 100 species of native bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects. Over 100. It is one of the most ecologically productive flowering plants native to North America. Plant 11. New England aster. Symphia tritricum novae Angliae. Saved for last, because it does something none of the previous 10 can do quite as completely. This plant is the single most important late-season nectar source for migrating monarch butterflies anywhere in North America. Research from Monarch Watch and multiple university entomology departments documents New England aster as a critical late-season fueling station on the eastern and central monarch flyways. Growing this plant in your yard in October is one of the most direct, most measurable contributions a home gardener can make to monarch butterfly survival. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. One of the most cold, hardy fall-blooming perennials available to American gardeners anywhere in the country. Daisy-like flowers in deep violet purple, rich lavender, bright pink, and pure white with golden yellow centers that glow in the lower autumn light. The color does not look washed out in full the way so many plants do. It deepens, it saturates. It performs in September and October with the same intensity that summer plants perform in June. That is extraordinarily rare. The named varieties, Purple Dome for compact deep purple, Alma Potchki for vivid pink, and September Ruby for rich crimson, are the standout cultivars across American zones. In late May, pinch every stem back by half. In late June, pinch back by half again. 2 pinches. That is all. Those 2 cuts create a plant with dramatically more branching, dramatically more flower stems, and a dense, compact, self-supporting mound that does not need staking. Skip the pinches and the plant flops open in the center and produces a fraction of the blooms it was capable of. When a monarch butterfly lands on your aster in October, coffee in hand, jacket on because the morning is cool now, watching the migration pause in your yard for a moment before continuing south to Mexico, that is the moment this entire list pays off. Before you plant a single thing, 3 rules determine whether your October garden explodes or quietly fades like every other yard on the block. Rule 1. Plant full bloomers in spring or early summer, not in fall. The pumpkin display mums and asters sold at every grocery store in September are bred for instant retail color and have no time to root in before winter. They almost never return. Plant true hardy fall perennials in May or June, give them a full growing season to establish deep root systems, and they explode in October of that same year and every year after. Rule 2. Pinch summer active fall bloomers twice. New England aster, mammoth mums, helenium and ironweed all benefit from 1 pinch in late May and a 2nd pinch in late June. Those 2 cuts create denser, more flower-loaded plants that hold themselves upright through fall storms. Skip the pinches and your fall bloomers flop open and produce a fraction of their potential. Rule 3. Leave the entire fall garden standing through winter. Do not cut anything down in November. The seed heads feed sparrows, juncos, goldfinches, and chickadees through every cold month. The hollow stems shelter overwintering native bees that emerge to pollinate your spring garden. The standing structure adds visual interest to a winter yard that would otherwise look completely flat. Cut everything back in March before new growth begins. The garden you leave standing is the garden that returns most fully in spring. You just spent time learning 11 plants that turn the most overlooked month in the American gardening calendar into the most spectacular. October is the month most homeowners write off. October is the month the right perennials peak. The yards that look extraordinary in October are not the yards of the gardeners who worked hardest in summer. They are the yards of the gardeners who planned for October specifically. That decision, made in May or June, is what changes the entire feel of your property from late August onward. If this gave you even 1 plant you are putting in the ground this season for an October explosion, subscribe right now. Every single week, this channel releases content at this level. Real plant knowledge, real seasonal strategy, real practical guidance that turns ordinary yards into landscapes that perform across every month of the year. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning of this video are already ahead. Join them right now. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and before you go, drop 1 comment below. Tell me which plant from this list you are putting in your October garden first, and tell me what state or zone you are gardening in. I read every single comment. Your answers shape the videos I make next. October is the most undervalued month in your gardening year. Plant for it now. 10 years of unforgettable autumns start with 1 decision this season.